Who's got a cookie? Who's got a cookie? Yes. I know. Look at what I got. I got a cookie. Come here. Sit. Good girl. Good girl. How about I do this? If I go like this and I say, which hand? Which hand? No. There you go.
Today was supposed to be one of the better days on the sports calendar, opening day of the NCAA tournament. And typically, many of us are making up creative excuses on how to get out of work. Unfortunately, we don't need excuses today. Unfortunately, we don't have any basketball games to watch. So it's kind of a strange day. We've all had years where you have a high seed, gets tripped up early, and no worse feeling than having your bracket blown up day one. You go back 2 years ago, and the 16th seed, UMBC, Maryland-Baltimore County, knocked out Virginia. Of course, the real money is won later in the tournament, but we overreact on day one and day two. But seeing all those games is still the best, and we'll miss those in these strange times that we're trying to get through. But think back on all the great tournament action, opening days that we've had in the past, and then look ahead to the games coming back real soon. And I think we all have those memories of there was a game that you watched, there was a player that you watched. And this is really, with the advent of one and done, you had a chance to get to know some players when it got to the tournament. And, of course, they would be gone. The great ones would. But you had some players like Obi Toppin at Dayton this year. This could have been his coming out party. And he might be the best player, in college basketball this past year. He's on the short list there. You had some really interesting stories. San Diego State was in there. Dayton was in there. Some teams that aren't normally up there. And Kansas, the Blue Bloods were there. We didn't know how good Duke was or Kentucky, some of the ones you expect. North Carolina, not good this year. Syracuse wasn't making the tournament. And it was, as we like to say every year, wide open. But when you have those first 4 days of the tournament where you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then you come up for air, and then you look at your bracket and you go, I got one region that's still intact. Everything else is in tatters. But always some great memories there of March Madness. This program is brought to you by True Car. True Car shoppers save an average of over $3,500 off MSRP. See what other people paid for the vehicle you want with the new True Car. Buy smarter, drive happier. All right, McLovin, got a poll question for us today?
Okay, this is a Paulie special. Would you rather attend or actually watch the first day of the NCAA tournament or the Super Bowl? So if you had to miss one, which one would you fear missing the most?
I can do without the Super Bowl.
Nice.
I love the Super Bowl, but I don't know. There's something about Thursday and Friday with just that frenetic pace. You know, you start at noon and it goes to after midnight, both of those days. Yeah. I would take the first 2 days. Do I get the whole weekend?
You get the first 4 days of the NCAA tournament.
Oh, yeah. I'll take the first 4 days over the Super Bowl. Yeah,
But it sounds like even if it was the first 2 days, you're still all in on March Madness.
I might.
Why wouldn't it feel great? Able to come here every day, get to see my friends and the Danettes. We get to hang out. I get to have bagels with a little hummus. Yeah, this is the life. You know, I could be quarantined in here for the next couple of months and I'd be okay. Stock up on a little bit of food and I got everything else I need here. I could sleep back there in the Airstream. Come to think of it.
Let's bring in Chris Mannix, who covers the league for Sports Illustrated. Chris, thanks for joining us. What are some of the ideas being thrown around come playoff time with the NBA?
Well, at this point, the conversations, and it goes without saying, they're very preliminary, all based on the evolution of this crisis, is where would you play these games? I think the league and the owners are pretty. I don't know if resigned is the right word, but they've settled on the fact that it's going to be early to mid-June at the earliest before they can restart any type of season. I mean, I think the talk. Some of the talk has been like, do we need to have a training camp of some kind? Because these guys are going to be probably woefully out of shape. Do we have to form some semblance of a regular season to kind of get them back into playing shape? But once the playoffs could start, a lot of it depends on the venues. And look, you'd ideally play in empty arenas if you had to, but sometimes those arenas aren't available at certain dates. So they've discussed, G League facilities, even practice facilities. Really, I mean, I had one person joke to me like, they'll play at an empty Y if TV cameras can get in there. So it's really just about finding a way to get that television broadcast revenue, whatever means necessary.
Do you think there will be playoffs, that there will be a team crowned champion this year in the NBA?
I don't know. I mean, I lean towards no.
Wow.
If for no other reason, Dan, is that I don't get, and I follow the news as closely as anyone else, and I keep hearing about how this is going to get worse before it gets better. I read about federal reports talking about 18 months potentially of this being a legitimate crisis. I mean, I don't know how all that is resolved in the next 2.5 months. Now, one of the questions I don't think I heard asked last night would have been, do you have a drop dead date? I mean, is there a date that you say, this is it, we have to scuttle the season? I mean, I know that they're talking about that, and that's something that I'm curious to know what that date is. And whatever it is, Dan, I just don't know how you're going to get things back on track enough to play basketball. I mean, really, the first date you have to look at is the mid-May date when the CDC comes out, presumably with new recommendations on size of crowds. If it remains at 50 or 10 even, you're not doing anything in any sport. If it gets upgraded to like 500, then maybe you have yourself a ball game there. So that's the number, and that's the announcement I'm looking for next.
I'm also wondering about this. I talked to a source last night and said, who told me, you know what? Don't rule out maybe first round 3-game series and then a 5-game series and then a 7-game series, as, you progress through the playoffs. Could you see a scenario where they had, truncated playoffs?
It's a good question, and I asked that a couple of different ways, and it's not been discussed, but it certainly is something that I think the people I've talked to anyway would strongly consider, just to salvage any type of postseason. I mean, there's only a certain amount of time they can wait here. They're not going to play games like into September. Like, that's just not going to happen. So if it comes to the point where they get to July and all of a sudden it's kind of an all clear to play sports, maybe you try something like that. I mean, they've shortened playoffs before. I mean, it used to be best of 5 in the first round for a number of years. So it's not unprecedented to shorten it a little bit. And look, these are unique circumstances. If you want to crown a champion and have a playoffs, you've got to do things differently, just like you did in '99 with the lockout shortened season. It was 2011 with the next one. I mean, desperate times. If you want to do something, if you want to get something done, you have to try some desperate measures.
Talking to Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated, does it seem like it was 7.5 days ago that Rudy Gobert tested positive?
It feels like a lifetime ago. I mean, it's wild. I mean, and one thing I would say, and not to criticize the NBA, but there's a lot of like NBA being the leader in all this. I mean, they're as guilty as everybody else in waiting too long. I mean, and I say that as a person that wrote a column, the day of the Rudy Gobert stuff that said shut it down. I mean, this was an inevitability. Like, this virus spreading onto NBA courts and amongst NBA players, and look, there's certainly an argument to be made in hindsight that the league should have shut it down a little bit earlier. But I mean, man, this has happened. This has all just moved so fast from, one player testing positive and everything getting shut down to now we've got as many as 7. And I fully expect that number to grow in the coming days and weeks to where we are with not being able to put 10 people into a building in this country. So it's a wild set of circumstances.
The player who will be most disappointed that the season is canceled would be who?
Oh, LeBron James, easily. I mean, he's having. And look, we're putting out our MVP awards and award votes this year for the year today on SI.com, and you know, I don't know that he would have had the MVP, but he had a great chance to win a championship. And look, you talk about what feels like, you know, a lifetime ago. I mean, the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant, you know, feels like so long ago right now. And, you know, this would have been, you know, LeBron's chance to not only win another championship, but also do it in a storybook way for the city of Los Angeles. So the way he was playing, the way the Lakers were playing, I mean, coming off wins over the Bucks and Clippers, I mean, I think he would be the most crushed by all this.
Good to visit with you, Chris. We appreciate your time as always.
I am keeping local businesses in business, Dan, because I have waffles from the same place on the way for the 6th consecutive day in Boston. So I'm ready to go.
Have you ever cooked for yourself?
I tried. Okay, so Paulie knows this. Like, I bought one of those Traeger grills in Vermont, and because Paulie had one, I had to get a bigger one, and I did. I got it for the outdoor deck in Vermont. Officially, I have cooked one hot dog on the Traeger grill.
And you've had it for 2 years.
Yes. I was over at Paulie's Vermont estate at one point, and I saw him cooking a bunch of stuff up there, and I just said I had to have one. And then I got it, and then first of all, it took me a while as an idiot to figure out how to use it. And then, like, when I got it, I'm like, I don't really smoke things, or I don't cook a lot of things. So I tossed a hot dog and a bun on there, cooked it up, and that was about, I want to say, 9 months ago, and I haven't done anything ever since.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, Dan.
Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated.
Mario, you've captured me talking to Marvin. Marvin missed work the last couple of days. He was sick, and we were worried that maybe he had come down with the coronavirus. But that wasn't the case. You were just sick. Yeah. Just sick. Do you want to explain how sick you were, or?
I was so sick that I missed work.
So what kind of sickness was it?
I just wasn't feeling well.
Like, what part of you wasn't feeling well? Like, up here?
A little lower.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're back.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad that you're healthy.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be back.
When Fritzy found out what was wrong with you, he was very sympathetic. Nobody else was?
Was he empathetic or sympathetic? Well,
Maybe both.
Oh.
I don't know.
Okay.
And he was also pathetic. All righty.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, Marvin.
Let's get to Tom Waddle, the former Chicago Bear wide receiver and a co-host of Waddle and Sylvie, 2 to 6 on ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dan. How are you guys? Hope everyone is safe and healthy.
If I said you could watch one of these, the Super Bowl or the first 4 days of March Madness, what would you take?
Super Bowl. I'm a football guy.
Oh,
now, I like basketball. Don't get me wrong, but, football's in my blood.
All right. What did you want the Bears to do? Before they brought in Nick Foles, what did you want them to do this season?
Interesting. I wanted them to upgrade a lot of spots on their offense. They were pretty pitiful in a lot of areas. They were 29th in yards per game. They were 29th in points per game. They didn't run the football. I wanted them to secure their offensive line. I wanted to get them to make a significant upgrade at tight end. But certainly it all circles back to the quarterback. And I wanted them to find somebody that can, with a defense as elite as this one is, help lead them to the promised land. And with a familiarity with Nick Foles, with Matt Nagy and the rest of the new coaches that he's put together, I think that obviously familiarity was high on their list with Nick.
You like this move?
I do. I think they're upgrade. I think it's an upgrade. Look, I'm not suggesting that Nick Foles is going to be the reincarnation of, Aaron Rodgers 5-6 years ago, but Nick Foles is Dan, I say Nick Foles is a professional quarterback, especially in this offense that he knows like the back of his hand. He knows where the football is supposed to go. Now, will it always get there? Maybe not, but he understands the offense and he understands how to read defenses and he understands how to go through his progressions. And it sounds awful, but I'm not so sure that Mitch was really in the same category. I don't know that he possesses all of that in comparison to Nick, but Nick's a veteran and, as I said, has experience in this offense.
So what's Mitchell Trubisky's future in Chicago?
I may be in the minority, but I don't think it's a very stable one. Dan, I don't think you give up a fourth-round pick and $21 million guaranteed when, A, you don't have a ton of draft currency, and, B, you have some tight salary cap situations. So to give up what they gave up for Nick Foles, I may be crazy, but I don't think you give up a fourth, pay him $21 million guaranteed, and bring him to Chicago and sit him behind a young quarterback who has struggled and a quarterback that I don't believe the coach believes in. That seems to be foolish to me.
How did they whiff on Trubisky? And not only whiff, they moved up to whiff on him and moved up and decided to pass on Watson and Mahomes.
It's the question that has left a ton of Bear fans, including myself, pacing my house at this time, banging my head against walls, and one that I really can't come to a solid conclusion on. Look, I get that you could have missed on Mahomes. Obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs didn't, and they were sold from day one. But how do you miss on Deshaun Watson, who was the best player in the country on the biggest stage under the brightest lights against virtually a professional defense that he faced in Alabama, and he excelled the way he did? I don't know. I mean, listen, I've prefaced everything I've said over the course of the last 3 years as I don't want to feel like I'm bashing Mitch, because I know Mitch is a wonderful kid who is a hard worker and he's a great teammate, but he hasn't been a very good quarterback, and we're in the business of winning games. I don't know, Dan. They must have fallen in love with what they saw in his 13-game career in North Carolina, and it's an answer that I can't find a good one, or a question I can't find a good answer for.
But you've been around these GMs and these coaches. They love the unknown. They love the potential for something. And I've always said, I don't care about a pro day. I don't care about the combine. Put on the tape. That's why when people were discounting Teddy Bridgewater, oh, he had a horrible pro day. Put on the tape and tell me how tough he is. And the same with Deshaun Watson. I think that the Bears probably looked at Deshaun Watson and goes, okay, well, we know that's his ceiling probably, and he did pretty well. But look at this guy over here. He's only played 13 games. Like, this is what we get. This is how we get into trouble with maybe Baker Mayfield, with Dwayne Haskins. It's these one-year wonders where we go, look at that. And then you go, oh, my God. I mean, even Joe Burrow the previous year was pedestrian-like. And then he had the unbelievable one season. So I think it's these GMs, they talk themselves in and out of things, and I think that's what the Bears did.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think there are some people in town that have given Ryan a ton of credit for his conviction. Well, I'd trade conviction for competence every day of the week. So, look, I think if you're going to go with a guy who only had 1 year in college, at least go with a guy that won the Heisman Trophy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, I can understand Kyler Murray. You pick Kyler Murray because the one season that he did play, he was outstanding. I get it for some of these guys. And again, I'm going to have to go to confession because I feel awful all the time by saying bad things about Mitch. But look, he had a nice year with North Carolina in the 1 year that he played. I just don't know how you fall in love with that and you move up and give up draft currency to making the second overall pick when you had Deshaun Watson sitting there. I'm baffled.
Former Bears wide receiver Tom Waddle joining us on the program. If I gave you the Buccaneers or the Bears more wins this year?
Wow. I actually think the Bucs are going to be a wild card team, and I think the Bears are also going to be a wild card team. So now I have to decide which one has the better record. I'm going to suggest to you that the Chicago Bears will have the lesser record. Look, I like what Tampa's done, and my first thought was, why? Because I thought Tom was going back to New England because I thought it was the best decision for both. But look, everyone's talking about Mike Evans. Mike Evans is a hell of a player. Chris Godwin's a hell of a receiver as well. I mean, you've got something. The one thing I'm concerned about with Tampa is they gave up 45 sacks last year, but they also, I think, threw the football more than anyone else. And I don't think you'll have the same situation with Tom. He'll get the ball out quickly. I think it was a defense that played significantly better in the second half of the season than they did in the first half. And I think they were, 7-9? And a lot of those losses were by a smaller margin. And I think you remove some of the mistakes with turnovers that Jameis was guilty of. And I think you've got a chance there. So, Carolina's going to be rebuilding some. The Falcons are a roller coaster. The Saints are obviously the strength of that division. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win 9 or 10 games this year.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be a playoff team even if they didn't get Brady. If you put Teddy Bridgewater in there, because look at all the turnovers. That's killed that team. And you get somebody who can take care of the football. You got a good defense, and you can make some plays with those wide receivers. You got 2 good tight ends. I thought that they were on the verge of being a playoff team.
I agree with you. And sometimes the best route is, and I'm sure Bruce Arians has said this to several of his quarterbacks over the course of time, and Bruce has got what a wonderful resume, is, hey, listen, you don't have to win this game for us, kid, but don't be the reason why we lose. And if you go back, Jameis has got a ton of talent, but 30 interceptions, 6 or 7 fumbles, and you could see some of this. I mean, I'm not suggesting that I'm a football prophet, but when he came out of Florida State, some of the same decisions, the decision making on the field, I won't talk about the off the field stuff, but the on the field decisions were questionable at times, and there was a high number of interceptions even at Florida State, and it's not a huge surprise that some of those issues have manifested themselves here at the NFL level.
Great to talk to you, Tom. Tell Sylvie we said hello. We appreciate your time as always.
You got it. Thank you, Dan. Be well.
That's Tom Waddle, the former Bear, co-host of Waddle and Sylvie. Afternoon Drive and ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Let me go with Brandon in Ohio with his take on Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah. This Meat Friday is dedicated to all the backroom guys who've been told they would never amount to nothing, and to all the people listening to the podcast wishing they could be in Milford so they could just have some brisket to feed their stomachs. And to all the charcoal in the struggle, you know what I'm saying? Ha, $5.10, $1.80. It was all a dream. I used to eat broccoli and salad greens, salt and pepper this ribeye steak for some good cuisine, making sure the Traeger's on, cause every Friday center cut bacon wrap filet mignon. So keep the grill shut till it heats up, smoking brats and hot dogs, sipping on some Wolf Pup. Way back, Fritzy had the buys and tries, arms jacked, and the lats to match. Remember Barkley's hat or Streisand's bra? You never thought McLovin would make it this far. Paulie's in the limelight, keeps the show tight, but cannot resist gushing for sweetness. Weed smoker, a mountaineer, and a joker. Seaton's laugh is the best part of the show. Peace to DP to a D, 7 C's. The big German kid, Mario and Red G. They're hanging out in the Milford hood, man cave grilling with pellets of wood. It's all good. Suck it back, bro. Now you know. You know.
Fabulous.
All righty.
Wow.
Brandon, well done.
Brandon,
That's
well done.
Brandon in Ohio.
Awesome.
My favorite rapper of all time, Notorious B.I.G. Todd, what did you learn on today's program?
I learned that McLovin is hearing LA may be running out of nails, thus making it a challenge to finish building that new NFL stadium.
Yeah. McLovin, what did you learn today?
Chris Mannix is keeping the Order in waffle business alive.
Seton O'Connor Jr. III.
Yeah, Chris Mannix, grown man, has waffles delivered to his house.
He can't cook.
Waffles.
Can't cook. Who has waffles delivered? Anybody can make waffles.
Waffles.
Paulie, what did you learn?
You and Fritzy had the same matching sweatsuit outfits today. You look like you're in some type of doomsday cult.
I know.
But too bad we never got around to that topic today.
I know.
Looking sharp.
Yep. Seton says, looks like you've given up.
Now you get it, don't you?
Yep. This program brought to you by LegalZoom. It's important to know the benefits of setting up your business the right way. Good thing LegalZoom can help. They provide legal advice. They answer your questions. You need to make it legal. Make it LegalZoom.com.